Let's begin.
The massive graphic.
Look at that. Where do we begin? How about we begin with the very first one?
Devon and I nearly in lockstep.
Look at that. Look at that. All right, let's go. Start off with De'Anthony Melton, since he's the first one there on the board. De'Anthony Melton, guys, free agent, dealt with a lot of the back issues this season that kept him out of the lineup. We saw him for one game in the postseason. And as a result, that back thing is really problematic. He spoke to the media before, right in the middle of the playoffs when they came back from New York and discussing how he felt good at the moment, felt like he was good to go. It's been a problem. It's been a pain. And you know what? Having to deal with it, one day feeling good, one day not feeling so great. And he was available, suited up for those home games, but we never, Derek, saw him on the floor. And with that, the numbers that you would talk about when the season was underway and that five-man starting group was at the top of the NBA with their net rating and how good they were, he was a big part of it.
He was a part of it, but let's be honest, like an Embiid Maxey five-man group is probably going to be really good. That being said, I do think his defense is something that we saw throughout the year and throughout the playoffs, especially. You need that two-way play. Like so many of the Sixers players can contribute in one way or sometimes legitimately just one skill or sometimes one side of the ball. He gave you shooting. He gave you a little secondary ball handling. He gave you some defensive versatility. None of us necessarily know what you can expect from him, but I think anyone who would say, yes, I think you should try to bring him back is doing that because you think you're going to get him on a cheap one-year deal and on a team desperate to build depth. Take a swing, see if you can have a prove-it year, benefit from that, and he can get his next contract. It's not so much like I believe that he will be healthy next year. It's just he might be so cheap because of the back that there's very little risk in doing so.
And I think you also have to be clear-headed about the last 2 years of Melton to bring him back regardless of what the price is. Like I think we, especially this past season, I can't speak for you guys, but I think most people would have come in saying, yeah, if he's not a starter, he's one of their most important players, right? Like he'll be sixth man, seventh, whatever you want to slot him into. He was going to be an essential piece. Now, having dealt with back issues now for, it was worse this past season, but this is now 2 years in a row where he's had some kind of back problem. You have to go into it as, yeah, he's kind of a lottery ticket type player. And that's why, for me, he's a yes, because that's the only type of contract I would give him. As much as I love De'Anthony's skill set and what he brings to the table, I'm not paying, over market to keep him or even close to over market. So I think all of us would agree that this is very much about, I think he's going to be on a prove-it deal. Yeah. And I think that if he's healthy, which is a big if, he will far exceed the value of whatever his contract will be.
Yeah, and if you're asking me the probability of that if he will be healthy, no, it's not probable. But that's why we're all talking about a low contract on a prove-it deal.
And the reason why I brought up the numbers of that five-man unit to start things off with the guys is because had he played all season, if he was healthy enough, and this team advances in the second round, maybe even gets a little further, that just looks good for him, regardless of who he's playing with, because he was a big part of that five-man unit. So, yes, for us, cheap deal, works out for the 76ers and him. He feels comfortable here. Maybe he feels comfortable because also with the medical staff, knowing that they have dealt with him and trying to get back on the floor. It all works out for everybody. De'Anthony Melton back for the Philadelphia 76ers. You made about $8 million last year, right?
Yeah.
So how much would you, if you had to guess? If you
he
just had to
might
guess.
legitimately be looking at like minimum territory.
Yeah, I was going to say, he could actually be on a minimum.
He hasn't really played since January. Like that's going to be tough to get a real contract from.
See, that's why you come here, folks. You get the answers.
I could be wrong.
Guys.
There could be someone who looks at his production year over year and says, all right, let's give him a more significant part.
And I would say, like, if you look at Detroit, or I would honestly, San Antonio might be an interesting spot for him, where they have a ton of cap space. Maybe they don't end up using it. Nobody really wants to go there. That's a big time free agent. Maybe they end up with some spare money and they're like, hey, we'll pay you around that $8 million on a 1 year deal. Yeah, and then you just upgrade exactly. Yeah. No real risk for them.
There's too much. There's that $8 million. It would be one thing if the Sixers were an over the cap team and using bird rights to bring him back. Then you could say, all right, we'll match that $8 million 1 year deal on a prove it. With the Sixers case, because they're trying to clear cap space to sign a free agent, No, if it's going to cost $8 million, then no, I don't think he will be back, and I don't think he should be back.
Dave Dorr said requires deep discount. Coach Low Ricketts, Melton is not an old fart. He is young and can probably recover from his back injury.
He's certainly young enough to recover from an injury. Backs scare me.
They're very tricky.
Backs don't really care about age a lot of times. It's
We all silly like the mayor.